Well, thank you, everybody, and good morning to you. We are here to kick off Census 2020 and welcome our complete count committee members. So give everybody a big round. Maybe a little known fact, but back, I guess, I won't say which census, but a long time ago I worked on the census, and it was a lot of fun one summer before I went to college. And as we know, every 10 years our nation takes account of America's population, and certainly the goal is to count every single person in the United States, and our goal, of course, is to count every single Washingtonian. So we know that others are fighting to include questions and adopt practices that will ensure an undercount of our vulnerable communities. And we are here to counteract all of those efforts and make sure every single person is counted. Which is why, even though we're still in the first half of 2019, we're starting our engagement process now and will continue through 2020. What we want to do is ensure that all of our residents, I'll talk loud.
Yeah.
Understand why the census matters and to understand the new online format. To make sure we can do this, I included $2.5 million in fiscal 2020 to support our budget, our census effort. Here's what we want people to know about the census, and I'll make sure that our team here can answer some specific questions as well. The federal government, and I want to thank our federal representative, all of the hard workers out there. And we so appreciate that. So this is what we use the census data, the feds use the census data to distribute resources to the states. And of course, we are a state. $3 billion annually comes to the districts from the state distribution for vital programs such as SNAP, or the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, Section 8 Housing Choice Vouchers, Children's Health Insurance Programs, Low-Income Home Energy Assistance are a few of the programs supported by our federal distribution to all states. Another way of thinking about this is that we lose about $4,300 a year for every person not counted. Got that? We don't count, we lose $4,300. In some ways, if we lose that money from the federal government, we, just the 700,000 of us in the district, end up covering that cost. We also need an accurate count because the census is used to update Ward and A and C boundaries. And following the census, there will be a adjustment to those boundaries. DC government agencies also rely on the data for budgeting, planning, and decision making. And just a word on the Ward and A and C boundaries is so important. And I remember when I was on the council during the last census process, wards and the numbers counted in wards 7 and 8 were much lower than in other wards. So for example, the ward boundary for Ward 7 ended up being just over 72,000, where in Ward 6 it was almost 90,000. So it's important that we know where every person is. So when the council deliberates, where those lines are drawn, we know and we will have confidence that we counted every person. We know that some of the challenges we face in DC, because families are living in complex living arrangements. We have a transient population. We have people who are leery of the government, don't want to talk to the government for a variety of reasons. And the current climate doesn't make it any easier. So to help overcome any barriers we might face during the 2020 census, we have established this committee of people who have a lot of different roles in the government, interact with Our residents frequently know where people live, have access to our various databases so that we can check and double check ourselves so we know that we are counting our residents. This committee will be out in our neighborhoods spreading awareness about the importance of the census, so expect to find them at community meetings and gatherings across all 8 wards. They will be educating residents about what the government is legally allowed and not allowed to do with the information that we collect through census interviews. And especially in regard to the fact that it is illegal for any of that information to be shared with law enforcement for any reason. And they will be helping us spread the message that the 2020 census is more than just a constitutionally mandated activity. Getting an accurate count is about equity and getting the resources that our city needs. So with that, I want to just read a proclamation. 1 second. Whoa. Whereas every 10 years, the United States Census Bureau counts residents across the country. And whereas the District of Columbia supports the United States Census Bureau in conducting a complete count of all U.S. residents as of April 1st, 2020. And whereas the District of Columbia is one of the most racially and ethnically diverse cities in the United States, and this diversity is our strength. Whereas May 16, 2019 marks the kickoff of the Mayor's Complete Count Committee. The Complete Count Committee is tasked with raising awareness of the importance of the census, aggressively reaching out to hard-to-count groups, and encouraging their participation in the census. A complete count ensures accurate census data, which provides critical information for government programs, policies, and decision-making. This includes funding for SNAP, Section 8 housing vouchers, children's health insurance or CHIP, and low-income home energy assistance. I have officially convened the Complete Count Committee, comprised of government, community, and business leaders to represent all residents. The next 12 months leading up to the Census 2020 are a critical time to engage residents to ensure they are informed about why the census matters. The Complete Count Committee will work together to ensure that every resident is counted. So therefore, I proclaim today the Complete Count Committee Kickoff Day.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good morning, everyone. It's great to see such an esteemed group of community leaders and government leaders around the table. My name is Andrew Trueblood, and I'm the Director of the Office of Planning. I'd like to start out by thanking Mayor Bowser for her leadership on this critical issue. She's been a national leader around what localities can do to ensure that all of our residents are counted, including through the significant fiscal year 2020 budget allocations that she mentioned, which Council has so far supported. As the Mayor said, we have already begun our engagement process to ensure that every resident is prepared and able to respond to the census beginning in March 2020. We are in the fortunate position of being a city that has continually grown since the 2010 census, but that also means we have more work to do to ensure that all 702,000 residents in the city get counted in 2020. Now more than ever, a full and complete count of DC residents is vital to ensuring that we have the accurate data we need to effectively plan and develop policies that reflect the residents who live in DC, and that we are getting as much financial support as we can from a federal government where we lack full representation. Our engagement strategy will address these challenges head-on. First, we have created a specific position in the DC government to focus solely on coordinating engagement efforts across agencies and community partners. Melissa Bird, if you can raise your hand. She is the Executive Director of DC Census. And Melissa is charged with bringing partners and agencies together to get the message out about the importance of census. Second, like other states, we have engaged the Complete Count Committee to spread awareness. We know that task is large and requires numerous trusted intermediaries. So we are also seeking additional community partners, including faith-based institutions, schools, libraries, ANCs, and individuals to work together to achieve a full and equitable count. Building a network of trusted partners and messages to spread awareness is key to our success. To support our community partners in census-specific outreach, we are creating a grant program to maximize the impact of nonprofit organizations who are reaching out to vulnerable populations facing an undercount, including immigrants, elderly residents, low-income residents, and those experiencing homelessness. Third, the DC Census team and our partners will be taking the information directly into communities where people live, work, play, and learn. Over the next year, you will see the DC Census team sharing information at special events and community meetings around the district in an effort to meet people where they are. In the meantime, residents can sign up on our project website, which is dccensus2020.dc.gov, to get information or to volunteer to assist with this important effort across all 8 wards in the city. In addition to seeking to count all residents, the 2020 census is also an opportunity for our residents to access census jobs, including the kind that you have. As part of this effort, the U.S. Census Bureau will be hiring hundreds of DC residents for temporary positions to address canvassing and door-to-door follow-up. The DC Department of Employment Services is already working closely with the U.S. Census Bureau to host job fairs and recruit DC residents for these positions, especially in Ward 7 and 8. More information about job opportunities can be found at the DC Census website that I mentioned before. While we are all aware that the 2020 census presents a national challenge to a fair and equitable count, I'm confident that under the mayor's leadership, it presents us with a once-in-a-decade opportunity to reach out to every resident, to let them know that they are valued and that they count. I would like to now introduce Paul Reyes, Assistant Regional Census Manager and our partner at the U.S. Census Bureau.
So first off, I'm excited to be in this room with so many people that are prepared to engage with the 2020 Census and the U.S. Census Bureau. Census Day is April 1st, 2020, and we're 321 days away. I say that because it's never too early to start planning for a census. However, there might be a time when it is too late. However, Mayor Bowser and her team, as well as the Complete Count Committee, are taking giant steps forward to ensure the fact that Washington, D.C. is accurately represented in the 2020 census. Excuse me. Mayor Bowser's office, as well as the Complete Count Committee, will have the ability to deliver the message of the 2020 census, whatever the message can be. Whether it's the employment opportunities of the census, the importance of the census to the community, responding to the census, as well as Title 13, which goes over the privacy and confidentiality of the responses to the census. We look forward to all activities and initiatives that this group can come together with, and we look forward to partnering with you moving forward. With that being said, I'd like to take time to introduce Latino Economic Development Center Executive Director, Marla Billinick.
Good morning. My name is Marla Billinick. I'm the Executive Director and CEO of the Latino Economic Development Center, LEDC. LEDC is a 28-year-old organization with the mission to drive the economic and social advancement of low to moderate income Latinx and other underserved communities in the DC area. We help people build assets through homeownership and small business development and are a certified community development financial institution. On an annual basis, we serve well over 4,000 low to moderate income individuals.
Is it possible to raise the sound level in this room? I can
We'll try
barely
one
hear
more
you.
time. Let's try again.
Stand up.
We had a problem with the microphone. 1 second.
You want to try it?
Before you came, it worked.
It works fine.
Oh, there it goes.
There it is. Okay.
On an annual basis, we serve well over 4,000 moderate income individuals, with roughly 60% of these clients representing the Latinx population in our region. I'm so pleased to be part of the district's Complete Count Committee and commend the district under the leadership of Mayor Muriel Bowser in assembling a diverse and representative committee to ensure that all district residents are counted in the census. The census is key to an inclusive and equitable democracy. Census results guide decisions ranging from political representation to federal assistance. However, certain populations are deemed hard to count. The Latinx population is one of these populations and therefore is at risk of being undercounted. Today, there are 56.5 million Hispanics living in the United States, and roughly 1 in 3 live in hard-to-count census tracts. There are many characteristics that make the Latinx community hard to count. These include language barriers, poverty, low educational attainment rates, and immigration status. The formation of the Complete Count committees mitigate these barriers by leveraging trusted partners and communities to motivate residents to participate in the census. It is imperative that all district residents be counted, and the creation of a robust Complete Count committee will help make that goal a reality. Complete Count committees are key to creating awareness in all communities across the country. Again, I commend Mayor Bowser in her leadership and commitment to a comprehensive, inclusive, and equitable 2020 census in Washington, D.C. Thank you, Mayor Bowser.
Thank you so much.
And I'm going to pass it on over to Kimberly Corbin, who's the Chief Administrative and Finance Officer at the Greater Washington Urban League.
Thank you, Kimberly.
I just want to thank Melissa for including the Greater Washington Urban League. We've been talking for a while in this historic event. We stand strongly side by side with the Honorable Mayor Bowser and DC's Complete Count Committee in declaring that now is that time when all DC residents must understand that the strength of your vote is dependent upon your count.
Yes.
The lack of trust in the collection of information and for whose benefit is our biggest challenge from an African American standpoint. From being deemed 3/5 of a human, enslaved with no right to vote, to having a lawful right to vote and be counted as a whole person would seem for some progress. That said, the denial of American Black history, systems perpetuating inequities, and unceasing efforts to purge people of color from the rolls is both iconic and tragic. At the outset, enslaved Africans were counted to ensure white landowners received funding for infrastructure, crop subsidies. Today, Black prisoners are counted where they are incarcerated for the economic benefit of those that live in the town. In neither of these situations do the Black people who are being counted receive a job, a penny, any kind of benefit. We have a trust problem. By design, our political and judicial systems are so rigged that the power of the Black vote is diluted as a result of the nefarious misuse of the census. The count is used to draw lines of suppression instead of representation. Such redistricting serves to preserve political and economic privilege for the few and has the intentional effect of overriding the Black vote. It's not enough, if that's not enough, propaganda, fear-mongering campaigns are waged, both foreign and domestic, to intentionally disenfranchise Blacks so they fear participating in their own economic and political empowerment. We are said to only be 12% of the population. Given that we are one of the most undercounted populations, is that really true? We must teach that the count controls the vote and the vote determines who counts. So the 2020 census must paint a truthful and accurate picture of the multiracial America that already is. The 2020 census must be used as a tool to remove the threats of civil rights and equitable opportunity for all. With the stakes so high, the Greater Washington Urban League began its work late in 2018. We began by initiating the formation of a collaborative partnership to address undercounted and hard-to-count populations in the district. At the outset, our objectives are to leverage our 80-plus years in serving this community to develop authentic and effective messaging that alleviates the fears. Offer the support of a trusted advocate to fuel and facilitate the participation. And lastly, ignite lasting community pride and engagement with a high dose of education and history telling. We implore all whole persons living in DC to avoid the knock and become the count that matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are there any questions? Questions? Andrew? Yes, Maria?
Do you know when the Supreme Court is going to come out with a question?
Let me repeat the question because you don't have a microphone. Maria's question is, when do we expect a decision from the Supreme Court on the citizenship question?
Unfortunately, I don't have the answer for that. It's still in decision. So, sorry.
I can say, as not a representative of the federal government, I think that the discussion is that it will be decided in the next few months, in the next month or two, rather, which is when the Supreme Court makes a number of decisions for this round.
And I guess I would just want to say one more thing is that we want to thank you so much, Muriel, for your words, but I also like to just say that we really need to work on 7 and 8, Ward 7 and 8, in addition to immigrants that are here from all over the world that maybe have not been mentioned this morning as much, but I know that the mayor is very committed because of who you're sitting here at this table. But I think that that resonates with so many people that are hearing the same thing about the immigration issue, about not being fearful of all the things that are happening in this country now. So I just want to say that I know that the mayor and all the people that are here at this table represent all of the communities, but I want to emphasize that since the census is going to be just online, I think it's really important that we really reach out and make sure that we can get the paper, that we can help people, and that we can be legal in the way that we can be legal in helping them fill out the census. Thank you.
Can somebody talk about exactly how it works, how the interviews, how are we collecting the data?
Sure. So in mid-March, there's going to be a call to respond, if you will, that's going to be like a postcard that's going to go out to the individual households to get people to respond online. However, should they not respond the first time, we will continue to send out mailings to let them know that we haven't received their response. And after, not only do people respond online in up to 12 different languages, we're also going to provide the opportunity for the first time ever also for people to respond over the telephone in up to 12 different languages. So people can call in their responses. Also, after non-response, that's when we begin our outreach to some of these communities, and we do our non-response follow-up, where we're reaching out, actually knocking on doors. And that's where the enumerator, the workforce, comes in, with the hundreds of enumerators that come into play. So, and that's how.
Okay, and then they will do a interview at the door?
Correct.
Okay, so tell us about the hiring that you're doing for enumerators.
Absolutely. So we've actually already begun our hiring process. The census is a massive operation. I'm sure that you can imagine we're trying to count throughout the country 330 million people and about 140 million households. So one of the things that we have to do is we have to verify our address list. And so right now we're preparing to bring on the first wave of temporary employees that are going to help us in the district actually verify our address list. So people that are interested in these positions can visit www.census.gov, 2020census.gov/jobs, where that's where they can apply. There they'll be able to apply and actually apply for supervisor positions also by taking like an informal assessment. So, yeah, that's how it's.
So do you have, as recall the last time there were a few locations where people could go. Do you have those locations this time?
Unfortunately, that we're pushing we're going online. The entire process is online. So people go. The website is actually mobile friendly. so they can
Okay.
use their phone. And we've actually been working with the city to
Okay.
actually host a couple of job fairs and participate in things like that.
Okay, so we'll make sure, because you're about to do your first round, you have a few tranches that you're going to hire
Correct.
for
We're going to hire.
supervisors and enumerators.
Correct. Well, this first round, they're called listers because they're
Listers.
listing the addresses.
Okay.
The non-response follow-up actually begins in March of 2020. So we're going to start calling like in February, March.
Okay, and what is the pay?
I'd have to follow up with you on that.
Okay, as I recall, it's pretty good.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
It's pretty good. And some people will, after they do the census work, they will go on to other jobs. So this is a good opportunity for us. Yes.
I think that, I've been told that the jobs are like 15 or something an hour, and anyway, but the point here is also that it's only
Maria.
for USA citizens, right? USA citizens are the only ones that can apply for those jobs, right?
We're actually encouraging everybody to apply.
Mhm.
That's first off. Everybody can apply. That's one. Second, U.S. citizens will receive preference to the positions.
So
We're going to try to hire U.S.
because
citizens
I
first.
want to put the message out, but I want to get the facts correct. So you're saying people can apply?
Correct.
Kevin, you have anything you look
I do.
like the tip of your tongue?
I have two questions.
Okay, here comes the microphone.
So,
Introduce yourself again.
I'm Kevin
for-
Donahue, Deputy Mayor for Public Safety and Justice. The non-public safety and justice questions, very interesting and important work. My two questions. One is, obviously technology's come a long way since the 2010 census. Could you talk more about the extent to which you're using technology, and is there any part of the census process that for those who are not connected to technology, would that be at a disadvantage of some kind? That's my first question. I'll hold on myself.
That's the first one? Okay. So, well, we are taking advantage of technology, first off. And obviously, part of what we're doing is we're deploying our enumerators and our listers with iPhones and laptops and mobile devices so they can conduct this type of address canvassing is what we're calling the first wave of operations. And also when we're out there and we're doing the enumeration, they're going to be using iPhones and mobile devices as well as laptops to do this stuff. Even applying for the job is available online. Everything's available online. In some cases, with those individuals that do not respond to the census online or over the telephone, we will mail out a questionnaire. We will go knocking on their door. And I'm sure that you can imagine if once they do not respond online or via telephone, the cost continues to increase. So that's some of the ways that we're working with technology.
And I'll just add from the district's perspective, part of the budget allocation is really to ensure that we have technology options available for residents who might not have connectivity at home or might not have a laptop or a way to fill out. So it's working with the libraries, it's working with others to make sure that we have those places. And that's something we'll be working, this whole committee, I think, will be working to make sure that those places are set up across the city at libraries, at nonprofits and others, so that the so that technology isn't a barrier. It's also, we're saying, one thing we'll be doing, and I'll put it, Dr. Joy Phillips is the head of our state data center in the Office of Planning. She has prepared a number of data with a number of maps with the census around how we should be targeting where undercounts have happened, where residents don't have the same kind of connectivity, so that we as a complete count committee can think about how to target geographically as well as by populations.
My second question is, at what point does the local or state governments start to have access to what the census has found in terms of the data it shows?
So December 31st, 2020 is when the first round of numbers will be delivered to the president. That's the first round. After that, they'll be released, I'm sure that you can imagine, on an aggregate level over a period of time, getting smaller and smaller, with aggregate levels getting smaller and smaller, geographically.
My final question.
That's three?
I did think of the third, so I just included that.
Welcome to my world. It's technically a follow-up.
This is actually a follow-up to something one of the prior speakers said. So DC is unique from a justice standpoint in that DC prisoners are housed in Federal Bureau of Prisons. And I know you're from the Census Department, not the Department of Justice. And at any given day, almost 4,000 DC residents will be at a federal penitentiary somewhere around the country. So When the census is done for those 4,000, are they, is that count attributed to the states that they're in, or is they attributed to the district?
So that's a very technical question, and I don't want to get it wrong. So I would definitely like to have the opportunity to follow up with you and follow up with the mayor.
Okay, that's helpful, Kevin. That's good for us to know because I could add to.
From what we've
Especially
researched
local.
already, typically the prisoner is counted where he is incarcerated.
That's correct.
There are some smaller exceptions, whether it be timing, it's a short term, jail sentence, he could still be counted in the district. But most of your long-term folks who are incarcerated will not be counted towards the district.
How does one get an exception?
I'll follow up.
Okay, got it. Barney?
Again, a question for the Census Bureau. The address has always been key for determining the accuracy of the count. How are you going to connect an online response to the address? That's part one of the question. Part two is, during the process, if you're seeing fewer addresses respond from a given census tract or neighborhood, will this committee be informed on the response rates across the city?
So I did not quite catch the first question, but I can definitely address the second. What was the first question?
Well, the first question is, I get a postcard, I fill out something online, or maybe I just go fill it out online. How do you know that I'm responding for a given address?
There's
And what if
physical
other
address.
people,
Oh,
physical address,
We're
and what
gonna
if
ask
other
you-
people at that address fill it out? What if there's conflicting, there's a lot of issues around that. How is the Census Bureau connecting place to the online?
so we've been working on our address list for years. We have a team we have a team that works for the Census Bureau, a very large team, that actually has been working on an address list for years. And then part of what we're doing also right now, as I mentioned before, the address canvassing portion, we are actually going out and verifying we're verifying our address list. On top of that, during enumeration, during the actual non-response follow-up enumeration, there are procedures in place, in fact, to ensure the fact that we have the correct addresses still. We recognize there's a lot of change. Before moving to Philadelphia, I lived in Alexandria, Virginia for a very long time. And I can tell you right now, the cranes that I see everywhere just tells me about the change that's happening throughout the district. Everything that happened, we can see it. And again, our operations will allow us to be able to identify those changes. Now, regarding how we're going to address non-response follow-up, it's like an immediacy. One of the things that I'd like to do before I begin with that is actually introduce the partnership team that's working here in Washington, D.C. So Alvini McQueen, would you please stand? Some of you already might know Alvini McQueen. She's been working in the D.C. area for quite a bit. Eduardo Guilletti, would you please stand? Eduardo is also our partnership coordinator here in the area that's going to be handling the D.C. team. So, thank you guys. So with that being said, we have this team and we've been working with the people on our side, the operations side, if you will. So we're going to know what areas need outreach. But way before that, the Complete Count Committee, Mayor Bowser's office, my team, are going to be engaging in those communities so that we don't have a lot of that. And at the same time, we're going to be responding in real time. In 2010, we did have analytical tools that let us see which counties needed some attention. It's been 10 years. The technology's further advanced. We're able to move forward.
Okay, those are some good questions. There's going to be some very good Complete Count Committee meetings. And keep asking those questions so that we can work with our partners at the Census Bureau to make sure that we know how it's going to work, all the tools at our disposal, when and how we can get feedback, and how we can push our residents out. And I know I am also very concerned about our older Washingtonians who aren't regular technology users, and also very fearful of giving information online or
Yes.
over the phone. So that is going to take, I think, a lot of effort on our part to make sure we're working with our older Washingtonians. Okay, thank you, everybody. And I know, are there press questions on this issue? If there aren't any, I'll do any off-topic questions when we conclude. All right, thank you. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Sure.